Hey y'all, Zach McDonald, your real estate agent with Real Property Associates, and today we are going to review a recent article, and this is the most clickbait title I think I've ever seen. It's called Hundreds of Seattle Homes Selling for $300,000 Over Asking Price. This article was originally published on housingwire.com and written by Tim Glaze. And as we go through this article, I'm going to read most of the article, not the entire thing. It's a little bit longer, but we'll take the big key points here and I'll add a little context as we go through and then sum it all up at the end. The article starts off with a bang, stating that median home sale prices rose 26.1% year over year to $738,800. And this is data from redfin.com, again, pulling from the Northwest Multiple Listing Service data. An astonishing 580 homes in the Seattle metro area. So that's not just Seattle, right? We're talking about like King, Snohomish, and parts of Pierce County, sold for $300,000 above their asking prices in 2021. That's compared to only 16 homes during the same period in 2020. So there were a few really special houses last year that still sold way over asking price. But this year we've had 580 houses sell for $300,000 over asking price. And percentage-wise, that is, on some of the more expensive houses, not as big of a percentage, but I've had a few houses that didn't quite make it to the $300,000 mark. They were like 39, 38, almost 40% over asking price. And they didn't quite make the $300,000 mark, but that's a huge percentage over asking price. I did have one house that made it into this $300,000 mark, and it was $355,000 over asking price. And it was in Olympic Manor, one of the more popular neighborhoods, and pretty rarely does a home go for sale in Olympic Manor. So that's part of what made that one special. View house, things like that. But one of the 580 this year, which is cool. And I had a few that were just shy that we'll talk about here in a sec. The brokerage listing portal, Northwest Multiple Listing Service, said that 478 homes in Seattle have sold for between $100,000 and $299,000 above asking price, compared with 362 homes last year. So 4,078 versus 362, and more than 6,300 Seattle homes have sold between $25,000 and $99,999 above asking price, up from $2,000 during the same period. Looking back at our sales, we had 6 houses that fell in between that $100,000 to $300,000 over asking price so far this year, and many more that were in that $25,000 to $100,000 essentially price range. So just lots and lots of homes selling way above asking price. Interestingly, recently we had one sell for below asking price in Everett. We were working with the buyer, so we were able to negotiate that price down a little bit, which the buyer was pretty excited about given some of these numbers that we're talking about. As we continue though, they interviewed a few different real estate agents. One is a Redfin agent. His name is Scott Petrich. And Scott, if I pronounce your name wrong, I'm sorry. But he said that I've never seen anything like this housing market. It's fueled by employees of local tech companies like Amazon and Microsoft, and companies with big offices in the area like Google and Facebook. A lot of them didn't want to work remotely during the pandemic in small apartments, and that pushed them to seek out larger homes with office spaces. Most of these people have had the money to compete with other buyers and drive up the prices. And I was talking with a client actually this weekend who works at Facebook, and we were talking about just their ability and increased ability to purchase given the crazy growth in the stock prices as well, and stock options, and some of the tech workers get some special perks and bonuses that a lot of other people don't get. So it's not only tech that's driving the price increases in the area, but I think a large part really is the tech industry and some of the perks that these employees have and their abilities to pay above and beyond maybe what other people are able to afford. And that's a lot of it's their stock options versus their salaries, from what I've been able to gather from my clients. The median home sales price, as we transition back to the article, in Seattle rose 26.1% year over year to a record of $738,800 in May. This must be kind of taking into account condos and things like that, because that's a little bit lower than some of the data that I have. Partly it's because many of these houses are being driven up over asking price, Petrich said. In May, 68% of Seattle area homes sold above their asking price, up from 37.1% last year. So again, just super big shift from last year to this year. Some of it is still the COVID-19 shutdowns versus things starting to reopen. This time last year, we saw a little bit of a dip in the market, and then things started to pick up from about now. So I think as the year progresses, some of these numbers won't be quite as drastic. The increases won't be as dramatic because we're seeing a more stable market, or well, hot market compared with a hot market versus like a slower market compared with a hot market. But we're still seeing some pretty shocking things so far this year. As we continue on, a few other things I want to highlight. Kind of halfway down the article, after Seattle proper, 5 suburbs topped the list of areas with the biggest increases in homes sold for at least $300,000 over the list price: Bellevue, Redmond, Sammamish, Kirkland, and Issaquah. In the city of Seattle, 146 homes have sold for more than $300,000 over asking price so far this year, up from just eight during the same period last year. So a large portion of these homes, we were talking about 580 houses, 146 were in Seattle that sold for over $300,000, but a large portion of them are going to be over on the east side. So the east side has higher prices than Seattle, and so it makes sense that there would be more of these over $300,000 sales over on the east side. So places like that we just mentioned, Bellevue, Redmond, Sammamish, Kirkland, etc. And those markets are even more competitive than Seattle and have seen a lot more growth this year as well, which I talk about in some of my market updates. So if you want to hear more information about the market, I think this is a good time to mention it. Every month I put out a Seattle area market update, right? Kind of the Seattle metro area. But then I also have a King County and a Snohomish County update. So King County is going to have the east side, Bellevue, Redmond, Sammamish, Seattle, etc., which isn't on the east side, but it's part of King County. And then you'll have the Snohomish County update, which is the north end and the suburbs on the north of Seattle and Bellevue. So I dive in a little bit more specifically to those markets. If you want to see those on a regular basis, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button so that you can see those every single month. Continuing on, Emily Cressy, again, Emily, I hope I got your name right. She's with HomeSmart Real Estate in Seattle. She mentions that winning offers of houses are typically 10 to 20% over asking price. If you're on the north side of the city, getting 20 to 30 offers. Again, I think that is starting to change. I don't think we're seeing as many offers, but we're still seeing way over asking price. And that people are putting up non-refundable earnest money of up to $50,000 on homes, and they're even choosing to waive contingencies, which means that if they lost their jobs, they would still be responsible for their earnest money. And they're waiving appraisals. It's just a crazy competitive market. And she's completely right. People are putting up with a lot. Buyers are waiving historical contingencies. I think the main two, financing and appraisal, are typically tied together. And then you've got the inspection contingency. Those are the two main protections that a buyer has in a normal real estate contract in the Pacific Northwest. And they're also protecting, those things are protecting their earnest money. So if they are removing those protections, the two main reasons that a deal might fall apart are going to be ability to get financing or appraisal coming in really low, or that inspection, something coming up. And so if those are removed, that earnest money is essentially the seller's. And so $50,000 is a lot of money to lose. And some buyers just can't risk that much money. It just doesn't make financial sense. The seller might not mind giving the home to somebody who's in a maybe not quite a strong financial situation. If they aren't able to risk their earnest money or put up earnest money like that, that's where a seller might choose an offer that has stronger financing, right? They are able to risk losing that $50,000 over somebody who's not, which really puts a lot of people, specifically first-time home buyers, at a disadvantage. The last theme mentioned in this article is the idea of construction costs and builders. Based on this article and the National Association of Home Builders, builders in the Seattle area are struggling to find projects due to the current astronomically high costs of lumber and other materials. A recent study from the National Association of Home Builders found that lumber prices are adding an average of $36,000 to the costs of new builds. And I've seen this recently, and I didn't see this as often in the past, where builders are actually writing in the contracts that they will kind of lock in this deposit where you pay a non-refundable deposit, and then they will kind of reserve the spot for you, but they don't lock in a price until it gets closer to the closing date. So I have some clients under contract on a house, and they're very well aware of this, but they're locked in at a a price, there's like an estimated price, but this estimated price is subject to change until 75 days before it's finished. And so right now we're this limbo land where they have this price, but it doesn't really mean anything. And they put down a deposit, and then at some point, 75 days out from completion, the builder is going to be able to change the price if they want to, given build costs or whatever they want to use to justify it. So for them, definitely not as ideal. And I have some other clients that are under contract on new construction as well that have a price locked in. So to me, that's a way better scenario. And historically, that's been more the situation. If a builder takes an offer early, then they're kind of locking in a price with the buyers at an earlier point, which is a little risky for them, but also gives them some assurances, right, that they're going to have a buyer. So in this case, I think it's way better for the builders to be able to adjust the prices, and for the buyer, definitely not as ideal. So interesting. I think this might be a trend that continues because for builders, it allows some flexibility and it allows them to change their prices, which, I mean, I don't see any builders being like, oh, it's cheaper to build the house, so we're going to discount it. I think this is going to be one of those things that changes the contracts in the builder's favor even more, where they're going to be increasing prices over time if costs go up versus decreasing prices. Again, I can't see builders changing their mind and saying, oh, we'll charge you less now because it costs us less to build. So we covered a lot in this article. We covered the fact that houses are selling way, way, way over asking price. We talked about some of the competition and some of the things buyers are doing to set themselves apart. And we even talked about increased construction costs, which I think will ultimately impact the resale market, because as costs go up for new construction, people then look at the resale and, well, it kind of goes back and forth, right? And now all of a sudden there's more competition for resale again. So I think we've got this super hot market. We have buyers that are paying way over asking price, as we can clearly see from the data. And I don't see an end in sight. I think the biggest things that could impact things are going to be interest rates going up. Higher interest rates mean less affordability for people. So some of the prices that people are able to pay now, they won't be able to pay if interest rates go up. And continued increase in costs also will impact things. If people can't pay these prices, eventually something's got to give. But at this point, we still have a lot of buyers that are able to continue to compete on price and drive up the prices, even though they're already at record highs. So for now, I think we're going to continue to see a hot market. I do think, and I guess maybe this is more wishful thinking, that the rest of this year, as we kind of transition towards 2022 and get into the fall and the winter, that we might see a little bit of a relaxing in the competition so that some of the buyers that have been waiting around and trying to get into a house can. But man, it's really hard for me to see that and see the light at the end of the tunnel right now. So I hope this video brought some value to you though. I hope you at least found it interesting as we look at this $300,000 over asking price and the crazy market that we're in, really historical at this point. If you want to hear from me on a regular basis and want to receive the market updates and talk about the market and engage with the content a little bit more, I mentioned it earlier, please consider subscribing to the channel. And if there's any value I can bring you in a conversation, please feel free to reach out as well.